view. Flip a doujin in the bed, I'm reading manga till it's two. Tell me that you love us if I go, I'm knowing that it's true. Cause you acting all moe and vanilla in my view. So this is for them waifus, straight 2D flex in my life, fool. If you fuck with him, tell you my dude. Let the beat right out, keep it nice and smooth, yo.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Weeaboos, the anime podcast where we get drunk and talk about anime. I'm Kyle, and it's just me tonight. Hunter is spending some well-deserved time with his lady friends, so we can pour one out for him since he's fallen victim to the 3D waifu. I am going off-brand tonight and not drinking. I've just been drinking a lot lately, and I'm not the biggest fan of drinking alone, so I kind of have to be in the mood for it, you know? Anyways, last week, when we talked about the mystique of anime, the topic of popularity came up a few times. Rather than jumping right into my opinion on the popularity of anime, I thought it might be a good idea for us to sort of extend that idea into its own episode. So that's what we'll be talking about today. For a while now, we've been experiencing a social movement involving the popularization of nerd culture. Things that were once nerdy are now considered cool, or at least socially accepted. And while anime is more popular now than it's ever been, it's still far from receiving the amount of social acceptance that comic books or maybe even Dungeons and Dragons have recently received. Crunchyroll has over 1 million subscribers, but it seems insignificant to Netflix's 6 million. In 2013, it seemed like anime was entering into the mainstream due to the popularity of Attack on Titan. But the moment the first season ended, anime sank back down to its normal social standing. There was speculation of a possible resurgence of fans when Season 2 of Attack on Titan returned, but we're approaching the halfway mark and the level of its initial popularity is nowhere close to what it once was. One Punch Man did something similar in regards to briefly popularizing anime, but neither come close to how superhero movies made comics cool. In fact, I don't think anime will ever be considered cool. But why? What's different from anime that makes it more nerdy than tabletop or video games? In order to answer this, it's important that we have a common understanding of what the term cool actually means, because as much as we try to deny it, the term cool and popular are two sides of the same coin. From a superficial perspective, cool is always changing, but fundamentally, it remains the same. Ironic detachment is my favorite definition of cool, which I found thanks to a YouTube channel called Vsauce. What ironic detachment means is to show indifference or to oppose something that is typically regarded as important. This is why cool is often portrayed as a rebellion against authority. There's no practical reason for someone to smoke cigarettes, but when I see Spike, Faye, and Jet smoking, I can't help but think they look badass. Smoking is a perfect example of ironic detachment because an individual is engaging in something they've presumably been told not to do their whole life, while also displaying indifference to the fact that it's bad for their health. If we can agree this is a suitable definition, how can we use it to help us explain how anything nerdy could ever be accepted as cool? Well, if you're willing to admit you like something nerdy, you're defying the conventions of what it means to be cool. Therefore, technically aligning with our definition of cool. It's ironic detachment, and I've sort of just unintentionally described what it means to be a hipster. So, theoretically, anything can be cool depending on how meta your justification for liking something is. But if that's the case, why am I still uneasy to say I like anime when asked about my hobby, but I don't mind talking about video games or D&D? What's the quality preventing anime from becoming cool? From what I understand, anime isn't even openly talked about in Japan. On one of our earliest episodes, we talked about the stigmas of anime. We later talked about the different types of anime fans, but I think the main reason as to why anime can't enter the realm of things that are cool because they are nerdy is due to the private nature of anime. Although I've mentioned this once or twice before, I don't think I've talked in depth about the consequences of anime being predominantly watched alone. We watch anime alone because it's simply the most efficient way to indulge in any form of media. As someone who orchestrates anime nights with friends, let me tell you, it can be incredibly frustrating. deciding what to watch, trying to work around everyone's schedules, deciding what happens if they miss a week. It's not fun. Even for someone who loves watching anime in theater, I'd prefer not to sit next to the sweaty 40-year-old groaning at fan service scenes. But as fans, we yearn to share our hobby in some sort of way. That's why some people join anime clubs and why I started making anime GIFs years ago. Even so, what about normal TV shows? Most people watch TV alone too, yet Game of Thrones can simultaneously be talked about in the workplace while also being the center of attention at Comic-Con. The reason is that despite how much the concept of cool is dependent upon defying the norm, cool still can't venture too far beyond what we consider mainstream. Most popular media follows a standard narrative structure we're comfortable with. Because of this, we can safely say the broad statement, I like to watch TV. When we say, I like to watch anime, people wait for us to follow up with a clarifying statement, or else we're asked, isn't that for kids? Isn't that porn? Do you mean Pokemon? Akira? Boku no Pico? Anime is all those things. There are too many subcultures and subgenres within anime to advertise it as socially acceptable. Maybe the problem is how we define anime itself. TV, movies, comics, they're all straightforward. Anime is a medium, not a genre. It's an investment. It's not easy to be genuinely into anime. Just ask someone what order you should watch the Fate series and you'll know what I mean. Anime may never be cool or mainstream because the medium would rather have a small, yet intensely invested group of anime fans that buy everything for one niche series, rather than a wider group of mildly interested fans. Anime often deviates too far from the mainstream and the socially acceptable, which is why it will never be cool, and is why I love it. So, I think we'll wrap that up there. I was actually considering discussing how, even though anime isn't itself popular or cool, from an insider's perspective, as fans, we obviously think most of what we watch really is cool. But when I was brainstorming what I think makes an anime cool, I found myself coming up with similar points to the juxtaposition episode, because the definition of juxtaposition shares so many qualities with our definition of cool. Pairing two contradicting elements with one another is showing indifference to conventions and rebelling against what we regard as normal in a sense. But maybe we'll go back to it. Maybe we'll talk about cool within anime at some point. I think it's an interesting topic. But before we move on to questions, I would quickly like to thank those of you who have reblogged the podcast on Tumblr. Thank you to ComicFan44, King Topopoulos, Darfinger, Slan Figma, Mr. Nike 3000, The Vulgar Knight, and most of all, thank you to all of our patrons, especially our newest patron, Joseph. So thank you so much for your donation. I really appreciate that. Mr. Nike 3000 also says, love the podcast. Thank you. We appreciate compliments. And this week's question comes from XGod. XGod says, dude, I just found out that you have a podcast. Holy shit. I love listening. Keep it up. The shit's great. Thank you. So he goes on to say, 2 questions. First, thoughts on the live-action Ghost in the Shell film. Well, I chose not to see it. If someone were to have invited me to go see it, I probably would have, but I didn't have an interest in going to see it on my own. So sorry, I don't really want to give an opinion until I actually, eventually, maybe, possibly see it. So I didn't really have an incredible interest in seeing it in the first place even. The second part of the question is, how does everyone feel about very stylized anime? For example, Fooly Cooly, Dead Leaves, and Redline, compared to the more standard approach. I would personally love to see more of this radical stylization. I haven't been able to listen to the entire backlog yet, but if you guys haven't done it, I think an Evangelion episode about all of the theories would be pretty interesting to get everyone's opinions and views on. Well, all right, let me cover all that real quick. So, I've actually been toying with the idea of doing a full podcast on this topic, and I think I found an interesting angle to present this topic, so you can look forward to that. But overall, I much prefer avant-garde, wacky, hyper-stylized anime than the standard, which is part of the reason Masaki Yuasa is one of my favorite directors. I would rather watch something inventive fail than watch something average-looking be mediocre. Personally, I almost value stylization over genre. So I'll leave it at that, to be continued. So, in regards to Evangelion theories, this is another great, although intimidating idea. I'll definitely keep this in mind. However, on a side note, that sort of reminds me, I've been doing a lot of thinking regarding the nature and future of this podcast. I have some pretty big ideas, but there are still a lot of unknowns in terms of like life. So nothing will be changing soon, and I don't want to give you guys any details yet because I haven't even talked to Hunter about this to a certain extent. I mean, but this podcast has sort of unintentionally become about anime culture rather than anime itself, which is perfectly fine, but I often come up with intricate topics that I can't exactly fit into a podcast format. So in order to work with those ideas, I'd need to shift my focus in a different direction, which would give me less time to work on the podcast, but I don't know. So the point is, things might be changing, but not for a while. With that being said, let's move on to what I've been watching. Like always, this isn't everything I'm watching, just the shows I feel like I have something worth saying about. So, Attack on Titan. Oh boy. I don't know what to think of the latest episode, so spoiler warning. Bertolt and Reiner casually reveal to Eren, and technically Mikasa too, that they are the armored and colossal Titan. That they are the people who caused the deaths of tens of thousands of people. That they are essentially the closest characters we have to actual antagonists. What they revealed wasn't too surprising. Nothing Attack on Titan reveals has been surprising, but the nature of how the reveal was handled was baffling. Like I said, I'm still not sure how I feel about it because there are two ways to look at it. Part of me wants to say that's not how you handle climactic moments. So much potential for this monumentally epic buildup is completely ruined for the sake of a joke. Like, honestly, this was more funny than dramatic. On the other hand, like I mentioned last week, Attack on Titan is bad at creating suspense, so it makes me wonder if throwing a huge reveal at us out of nowhere is for the best. I personally think this was a missed opportunity, but it may just be Attack on Titan embracing its own, I don't want to say stupidity, its own contemporary nature. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. All right. So, Shingeki no Bahamut. I don't have much to say, but like, man, is it a beautiful looking show. Like, the animation from episode 6's like adorable dance scene was absolutely fantastic. Nina is still best girl of the season. I love her so much. The concept, her fault, the fact that she'll transform like just by seeing an attractive man is adorable, and it's so creative. I really love just like sort of the simplicity, I guess, of Shingeki no Bahamut. But Eromanga Sensei. So I'm starting to actually hate the show. It was bad from the start, but now it's just fully out of control. I hate how much the dialogue contradicts the visuals and actions of the characters. It's just plain bad. Not even so bad it's good. It's just bad. I mean, it's pretty, which makes it watchable, but it's not saying much. Recreators. Despite its flaws, it's still a fun show to watch. I liked the message it had regarding how anime characters sort of have the inherent desire to save the world, even if it's not their own. The nuance in the anime is nice. It's just the gritty details are sort of poorly handled. Uchuten Kazoku is absolutely amazing. It's just such an imaginative, whimsical, and heartwarming experience. So that's all I really have to say about that one. So Sukasuka, I'm having some problems with. Something about the design makes the show seem a bit superficial and is getting a bit tiring. Like the girls with the butterfly wings, the shattered looking swords, the armor, the witch hat, the world full of animal people. It's so much, it looks messy. And then of course it lacks nuance and characters feel flat. Like they aren't growing. They're at the same place they were since episode 1. But it clearly is not the intent to do that. So a little disappointing. I'm going to stick with it. It's still okay, but it's definitely nothing special at this point. And finally, but once again, not anime, Samurai Jack. Oh my gosh, Samurai Jack. So definitely my favorite episode so far. The entire episode was filled with these hilariously awkward moments of sexual tension between Jack and Ashi. Spoiler alert, until the very last scene, when you think it's going to end and we suddenly get a hard cut to Jack and Ashi kissing to Dean Martin's Everybody Loves Somebody, then cuts to the credits, and then cuts back to the kiss scene one more time. Like, I didn't realize how much I wanted to see that. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I wish more cartoons or even anime had as much style as Jack. Like, it feels so unique. It's such a great looking show. So that's been a fun experience. If you have any questions or suggestions for episode topics, please don't hesitate to send as many as you'd like. You can send them to myself at Secret Otaku on Tumblr, or send an email to us at theweeaboos@gmail.com. You can also leave a comment wherever you're listening. Join us on Twitch most Fridays for our live streams, and join us on Discord so you can talk to us whenever you'd like. Also, consider supporting us on Patreon or leaving us an iTunes review if you'd like what we do. And more than anything, please share the podcast because word of mouth is pretty much the only way we get new listeners. I want to thank Hentai Dude for our intro music, and Kuwagata for our outro. And like always, can I say get drunk in anime since I'm not drinking? Watch anime and Ganbate. Sure, that works. Watch anime and Ganbate. See you guys next week.
You can catch me smoking a sour off the coast of Okinawa. Feeling so high like I'm Ho-Oh in that tower. Take a flight on some shit. Got my dogs riding beside me, blazing hot. That's kamikaze, sacred fire. Don't be mad, I'm lit. Catch me smoking a sour off the coast of Okinawa. Feeling so high like I'm Ho-Oh in that tower. Take a flight on some shit. Got my dogs riding beside me, blazing hot. That's kamikaze, sacred fire. Don't be mad, I'm lit.
I can't put a witty, stupid thing in the after credits because I'm all alone. The air conditioning turned on. I'm not drunk enough for this.